Welcome to The Gap, where it's our mission to bridge the gap between javelin and baseball training styles.
I'm Brett Hart, coach at Grind Athlete Performance and founder of Hitman Performance.
I'm Dan Labadia, javelin coach at Southern Connecticut State University and the man behind Jacked Javelin.
Hope you guys enjoy the show.
All right, welcome to this episode of The Gap. Today we have Luke Dawson on the show, otherwise known as THROWCHED from ATP Stanford. So welcome to the show. We're happy to have you on in person here, local Connecticut throwing extraordinaire expert. So yeah, just tell us a little bit about yourself and how did you get that nickname of THROWCHED and how to get up on the wall at the bullpen at ATP, because I always think that's a little cool that you got your own little plug in there.
Yeah, quite the intro. Thank you. Thank you guys for having me on. Yeah.
Thanks for having us on.
I'm just
Absolutely. I mean,
the Robbie Rush.
He would love that. He would love that.
Look at how loud it is. I'm going to have to cut that down so much. My ears are going to be
Oh my gosh.
When I'm editing this.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Episode 100, right? We're going to get back to.
We're 2 years in, can you tell?
All right. Name's Luke Dawson. I am the integrated throwing coordinator at Advanced Therapy and Performance in Stanford, Connecticut. Grew up in Stanford actually, and then went on to go play at Bentley University. It's a Division II school right outside of Boston. Graduated from there in 2019, and since then I've been playing some independent professional ball here and there. And then since the fall of 2021, I have been working at Advanced Therapy and Performance as the throwing coordinator there.
Sweet. So I think the biggest thing that stands out to me about you is I know that part of your experience was that you were like a low 80s guy in high school, and now what did it take you till you were 25 to hit 99 off the mound?
I think I was 25 when I did that.
Yeah. So I just think that's really cool too, because the way you're working, like after college, you're working at a facility, and you're also training yourself, experimenting on yourself, using yourself as your own guinea pig, and then relaying it to not only people that are younger than you, but also people that are maybe older and some might say better. And I just think that that's like that's kind of like how I am as well. So I just see a lot of that parallel of like how obviously I have my two elite athletes that I work with that are much better than me, and then I have a ton of younger kids that I'm trying to help them get to where I was, and I'm still training and throwing myself. So talk about your process, because I've talked about my process a bunch on the show. Talk about your process of throwing after college to get to that 99 mile an hour, but doing it like while you're working and coaching other people as well.
Yeah, definitely. When I was in high school, I was, throwing like low 80s, touching maybe like 85 is like the hardest I think I ever hit in high school. I mean, we didn't have radar guns around all the time, but definitely like every time I was on a radar gun, it was like, usually around 80 miles an hour. And that was, definitely like junior, senior year. Before that, maybe a little bit slower. Definitely nothing crazy. And at the time it was very much like, I played with some guys who were throwing 90 miles per hour in high school, 90, 91, 92. And it was like, okay, those are those guys, and that's what they're able to do. And it's like, this is where you are, this is what you're able to do. And there wasn't much of an idea of like, you can train and get better. And I kind of took that mindset, and I was like, okay, I'm going to go play at my Division II school while these guys are at Division I schools, and I'm just going to enjoy my time and try and be good at baseball. And, we didn't have a radar gun at school either, so the first time I was on a radar gun again after I'd hit like 85 at a showcase going to my senior year was at the end of my sophomore season in college, and I hit 94. And that was a pretty crazy jump. And I was like, oh, this is like a real thing. Like, some people aren't just like born to throw 90 and that's it. And some people are only going to be capped at like 85. obviously there is like some of that. There are like limitations, but for someone like me, it was like, okay, I just like developed a little bit later. You know, I got to college and, you know, I got a little bit bigger. I got way stronger and overall just like more coordination, working on my mechanics, practicing more, all of that. And it wasn't even like I was like working towards throwing harder or anything like that. It kind of just happened. I wasn't tracking it. Like we didn't have a radar gun or anything like that. It kind of just happened. And then once that happened, I was like, oh, I can actually like do something with that. You know, I can play professionally potentially. So that's when I kind of started to take things. I mean, I was always taking things seriously, but I started to like dial in and like, what can I do now to get even better? How do I refine myself? And that's when I got to ATP that winter of my junior year of college, 2017, 2018 winter. Because I was like, okay, I need to like dive into the things as much as possible. Because I was lifting on my own. We didn't really have like a lifting program at school, which kind of ended up working out great because there are some not great college lifting programs out there. And I know you guys know that,
Yeah.
but it was great because like I was able to like do my own stuff, and I was eventually able to do like my own ATP workouts. Probably for some guys it wasn't great because some guys just wouldn't train. Overall, like we had a pretty good culture with that, I'd say, amongst our team, but definitely some guys like could have benefited from that a lot more. And then yeah, after college, I didn't end up getting drafted, but I knew like I had more to give to the game and I had more to like show and prove. So was continuing training with ATP. Like we didn't really have our facility then, so it was kind of just I was lifting there, and then I had a different facility that I was working at in the off season. I was just kind of giving like baseball lessons, and so I'd go there in the morning. I would throw, and then I'd go lift ATP, and then I'd go back to the other facility, and I would do my baseball stuff, like my lessons there. So, you know, it's definitely a lot to like balance. It's a lot nicer now being able to have all of that in one place because I can do all my throwing, my lifting, everything I need to like under one roof. And then, you know, you also asked about like how to like working with guys who are better than me. You know, it's obviously it's easier to like, you know, approach a high school athlete or a college athlete to be like, okay, I've been there. This is what I did to get to where I am. But, you know, yeah, we do have like a good amount of pro athletes, you know, guys in the minor leagues, even some guys in the big leagues. And I think with our pro guys, it's a lot more of like an open conversation, right? I'm learning stuff from them. They're learning stuff from me. They're learning stuff from each other. It's like, how can I create an environment where we can have open discussion and everyone can like bring their own philosophies together. And I think there's a lot more understanding now in the game, especially in baseball. Like, you know, it used to be like, oh, like you didn't play in the big leagues, like you'll never be like a big league manager or a big league coach, right? But now there's like so many examples of guys who did not play in the big leagues or guys who didn't play even professionally in some cases, and they're coaches at the big league level, you know, in professional baseball. And I think it's because now players are starting to understand like there are things that those people can help you with. You know, they have some knowledge that you might not have, or that someone who maybe made it to the big leagues doesn't have. And obviously, like, if you made it to the big leagues, you have great understanding and you probably have like a lot of really good insight to offer, but there are some people who have other insights and can also help you out. So
Yeah.
it's balancing it out.
Absolutely. I mean, we talk about that all the time, that sometimes the best elite athletes aren't the ones who are the best coaches because they just have that ability to throw 93 in high school. And when you ask them, how'd you get to 93? They're like, I don't know. I've always done it that way. But having someone like yourself of understanding the work necessary required, the mechanics necessary required, the work ethic in terms of going to outside your program to find that lifting program that was structured for you, you're going to gain all that knowledge of how to get better. And so when you have a kid that's or you have a guy that's older than you that's not as that's better, you could be like, okay, we could tweak some things to help you get to the next level because you actually went through that process of improving your velocity, improving your physical capability, your coordination, all that type of stuff. So sometimes having the context of understanding why you weren't at that level at a younger age and how you got there is more valuable than just always being there from the start naturally because you understand the process.
Yeah, there is very much like a component to that where it's like some guys who make it to the highest level are just like that good. And a lot of that can be rooted in like, yeah, what they were doing when they were younger, and how they developed. But a lot of that is, natural ability for sure. There is some of that as well. But yeah, even like with myself, like I throw harder than some of our pro guys. So like there's stuff I can offer there, or like, I might have like a better slider than some of them. So like we can share stuff there. But then, myself in my own playing career, like, okay, those guys are actually like better at the game, like getting guys out, right? Some of that could be like mindset, it could be like command stuff. It's like, okay, how can I, learn stuff from them for my own career, but also then to like convey to my younger athletes, and help them out with their game so that they don't go through the same struggles that I went.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where for me, like too, going through Tommy John and having the elbow issues, some of my higher level guys are now running into that at the age of 22, 23, and they didn't experience that when they were younger. But now that they're older and way better than me, it's like I could relate to that and help them through that process. So there's always just different things that you can help them through, whether it's like physical or mechanical.
Yeah, we have a lot of high school guys that similar like how you were in high school. Like they always compare to the people that are always throwing harder than them, and it's always just the nice crack the coke, right? But what would be some type of advice you'd give to someone like you that who were a late bloomer, and these kids are comparing themselves to other guys that are throwing like 85 to 90, low 90s, but they're sitting like 78. They're just not there yet. Like, what's something that you can tell them to like, if they keep going along the process, like it could happen to them as well?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, obviously, number one, like to share my story because I think it's very relatable for some guys. Because I see the situation they're in, like not recruited by the schools that they want to, not recruited like to the D1 level, might have to like settle for a D2 or D3. So I think number one, just getting them to understand like that's fine, and like you're going to have a great college experience, like no matter where you are, if it's the right school for you. And it's like you shouldn't base your decision solely around baseball. And obviously that gets said in the recruiting circles all the time. But I think like I went to probably like the perfect school for me, like in terms of like who I was and what I was trying to do, what I was trying to study, all of that. And like I think as a result, like I have like a lot of my best friends in life, from Bentley, roommates, teammates, all of that. And then going off that too is just like getting back to like playing the game and understanding like the goal at the end of the day is to be good at baseball. So like right now in baseball, like the recruiting, is very like metrics based, especially for pitchers. It's like I've seen kids who are some of our best pitchers who don't get recruited to a school because they're throwing 87 miles per hour instead of 89 miles per hour. And it's like, I think that's just a total misunderstanding from like a college coach's perspective of like what is going to help them. Like if you're standing in the box, like there's no difference really between like 87 and 89 a lot of times. And a lot of that also comes down to like how your pitch is moving, how you're actually like pitching, right? How well you might hide the ball, what like metrics your pitch has in terms of like movement. What your off speed looks like. There's so much more to it than just like one single number. And like obviously like velocity is like really, really important in the game. But if you can just focus on like, okay, I need to like get guys out, and knowing that velocity is a piece of that, but it's not the end all be all. It's like you will have success. And then when you get to college, it's like, this is why the recruiting process is so messed up right now in baseball, is because when you get to college, like if you can't get guys out, if you can't throw strikes, no matter how hard you're throwing at any level, you're not going to play that much. Like, if you go watch a Division I baseball game right now, there are a lot of guys, at the higher level schools, like those power conference schools, who are throwing like mid to upper 90s. There's a good amount. But a lot of guys at those schools too are also throwing like 90 miles an hour. And then if you go and watch like a mid-major game, there's a lot of guys who are throwing like 85 to 90 in that range. So those coaches are putting the guys out there who can pitch and can get them outs and can lead their team to wins. Because that, at the end of the day, is what the coach is, what's going to reflect how the coach is doing. And, like, if they're going to keep their job, if they're going to move up to another level. Like, that is what's really, really important. So the more kids can, like, focus on that, like, the other things will develop.
Yeah, I just have a quick question, too, because I was a catcher, so I caught a lot of pitchers. And I was just wondering if you guys do anything, like, mindset-wise. Like, cause like the bullpen warriors, like the guys that are absolutely filthy in the pen, but as soon as there's a batter in the box, they forget how to throw. Like, how do you go about navigating that? Like, what's that conversation even start with?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at ATP, we have a mental performance coordinator, certified mental performance coach, Matt Rieger. So shout out to him. And obviously, like, in his sessions, he works on a lot of that stuff. Like, I've worked with him in the past. I've spoken to other, like, mental performance coaches. But obviously, like, he's doing his thing, and we try and, like, piece everything together, right? Whether that's mental performance, whether that's training, therapy, throwing, we try and, like, we communicate and get everything, get all our minds together, working towards, like, the goals of an athlete. But when I'm doing my throwing sessions, it's like Matt is not out there with me. So that's when, I can kind of borrow some of those tools and borrow some tools that, like, some of our other pro athletes use and say, like, okay, like, try this out. Like, what are you thinking about? Like, what is your thought process here? Because I know, like, I've gone through, like, a lot of those struggles as well, where it's like bullpen's great, guy steps in the box, and, like, you start to overthink, like, some things start to, like, go on, and you don't execute the same way. So it's like, that is, like, that can obviously, like, kill your career, because that's, like, the kid who, throws really hard but gets to school and doesn't play. And it's like, okay, that's not good. Like, that's not a good experience for you. Like, you could get drafted because you're throwing 95, but you're not going to make it to the major leagues if you can't execute in a game. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, like, the mindset is a huge thing, and I think there are, like, mental things that go on, but a lot of times I think how someone is training is going to dictate, like, how confident they are when they get into a game. So I know, like, in my career, there's been times when, like, I was working on gain velocity, and I gained velocity, but I was also not throwing to, like, a batter that much. I wasn't, like, simulating at bats. I was, throwing to a big target, not a little target. And then got into a game, and I was like, oh, wow, I haven't really practiced this. Like, so you don't have confidence with it. So the more I can get guys, like, okay, we're working on velocity, but we're going to bring it back at the end of the session to, we're going to put the batter in there, and you're going to have to execute pitches, and we're going to simulate a batter or an inning. And it's like, okay, like, did you do that or did you not? And at the end of the day, like, that's kind of what the game is going to be like. You have to get your training to be as close to the game situation as you can. And the more you can force yourself into those situations in training, the more comfortable you'll be in the game, because you'll be like, oh, I already did this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we see all the time in javelin as well, is everyone gets so caught up in doing the approach separate from the throw, and then working on their mechanics and doing drills, and then doing weighted ball throws, and then actually piecing it together on the runway in a competition environment is not always the easiest thing. And the more you practice that, the better. And that's why I'm struggling right now as a coach with my younger group, just because they have this, we've been inside all winter, and now our first meet is April 5th, and getting out onto the runway now trying to throw for distance as opposed to throwing a javelin into the net is like completely different. And I just wish when I was younger I had someone like forcing me, tell me, I know you're not comfortable throwing out of it yet, but you have to do it. You have to, start slow, add your running steps, throw for distance, because it's very easy to get caught up in, that bullpen environment, or throwing into a net or throwing into a wall, and then you get out onto the runway or onto the mound with the batter in the box, and then you're not used to that environment. And so especially in track and field too, because your coach always isn't there either. Like when you're out on the mound, your coach isn't there with you. Then with track and field, a lot of times if you're working with me remotely, or you have an event coach that might not, maybe there's shot put or long jump going on, and they're responsible for being at other parts of the track, like we talked about earlier. They're running around all over the place. They're not there with you in that moment. So the more you can get comfortable simulating that in practice and just getting those competition reps is super key.
Yeah, I just remember as a hitter, like day one, first game, like being up north, you hit inside all the time.
Yep.
A lot of tee work, a lot of soft toss, BP, and then you start hitting live around now. You get like 1 or 2 weeks in, because pitchers don't throw live that much, especially if you're not part of like a private organization. Like you gotta ask people, like, hey, you want to throw live to me? If they're not ready for it, they're not going to do it. But then you go first game in the box, the pitcher seems like they're a foot away from you. And I'm sure it might be the opposite for pitching. The catcher looks like they're a mile away.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, like the depth perception is just like completely off. That was always my first at bat every time during the spring. I step into the box and the pitcher looks like he's literally a foot away, and the ball is just already by me.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, one thing, Dan, that you said was like your coach isn't always going to be there for you, and it's like obviously like over coaching is very much a thing, and like obviously I try my best to like tiptoe that line between like this is what this person needs to do and I need to coach them to that, but also like if I say too much, like that's not going to be good either, and that's very like person dependent. You kind of have to like learn your athletes, but there will be times too where it's like I'm in a session, it's like, okay, we're going to simulate a few batters here. And it's like, okay, I'm just going to go step back here by the wall and I'm not going to say anything. And I want to see like how you react, because yeah, like your coach won't be out there. Like I'm not going to tell you like, this is the pitch to throw here. Or I'm not going to say like, you need to make this adjustment. Like I'm not going to be there. Your high school coach, might be saying some stuff, but also like, he might not know. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like there could be like some like you could have a great coach for whatever team you're playing on, but also like maybe you don't, or maybe he doesn't see something that way, right? He's not saying it right behind the plate or right behind the mound, right? Like he's off to the side in the dugout. He can't really see what's going on that great. So yeah, it's like you need to be your own coach when you're out there.
Absolutely, you need to have that autonomy to be able to know what you're feeling, how to deal with it, work through it, because that confidence is going to come with experience and being able to stay relaxed under pressure.
Yeah, and another thing off what you were saying, Brett, was like, that first time you were like playing the game or throwing live, and it's like we'll do live at bats, usually like 2 or 3 sessions leading up to the season for our high school guys, and like that first time, even a lot of times like the second time, like guys won't pitch great. But like a lot of times, like the first time, guys like don't pitch great, and they're like they panic, and they're like, oh my god, like what? And it's like, okay, no, like that's why we're doing it. We're doing it so that like the first time you go live is not, at your high school tryout where you need to perform, or it's not in a scrimmage, or it's not in that first game, right? It's like the same idea. That's why you play scrimmages. It's like to like get ready for the game. But then it's like as many times as you can do that, as many opportunities as you have to like get reps in, like close to game reps as you can before like the real games that matter happen, the better it's going to be.
Yeah. Do you ever see, because I know there is a fine line too where people might overtrain in javelin where you're throwing out of the full approach like 2 or 3 times a week, and that's too much, especially with it being on a hard track surface and you're doing a full run up throwing a 2-pound spear. It's a lot on the body. Do you ever see that in baseball? Obviously, you have overuse injuries with the shoulder and the elbow. Do you ever see that turns into too much bullpen time or too much live at-bat time?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some guys you have to like reel them back in. I know for like myself, I'm like one of those guys. But you really do have to. I always try and get guys to understand like who they are as a player or as an athlete and how their body feels. So like I could definitely give kids a throwing program that says like you're gonna make this many throws at this distance, like on these days of the week. But I think that's just honestly I think it's like kind of nonsense because that's not really how the game is played. Yeah, if you're coming back from an injury, that's great. Sometimes if you're coming back from a shutdown and you need to build up, there's definitely some guidelines to follow, and like some time you need to take to build up. But at the end of the day, you need to regulate yourself and figure out what can you do this day. And at the end of the day, too, there's going to be times in the season where you don't feel great, and your coach is going to say, "All right, you're going into the game, and you have to pitch." And if you have that mindset where it's like, oh, I'm not feeling optimal today, then like you're going to be in big trouble. And that goes back to the mental performance piece of it.
Too much caffeine or not enough sleep or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. You can defeat yourself mentally with that mindset. But yeah, there's some guys where it's like, okay, like you've thrown this much, like we can see your velos dropping. Like you might feel all right, but like the results are showing us something else. So like we need to put together a little bit better plan there. And guys will obviously always be like pretty receptive to that, but they just need to understand who they are and how to stay on top of that.
Do you know Bill Miller? Do you see his stuff online?
I've heard the name. I think I've seen a little bit of his stuff.
Yeah, so he actually does something. I'm pretty sure this is him. You maybe correct me if it's someone else, but he'll test guys like grip strength before the session to see how their fatigue is. So basically, if they're supposed to say throw a bullpen that day and their grip strength tests really low, it shows a sign of over fatigue. And so he monitors that to basically see how they're feeling. Because he's really big on, which I think Heenan is big on it too, or he kind of talked to me about that, which I can get to in a second, but just like the central nervous system fatigue, because that was something that that Josh taught me was with your mobility and your ability to recover. It's not always I forgot what he said exactly, but he said it's not always like a muscular issue, but it's more of a central nervous system issue. So like that was a big thing for me, is because I will still push it in the weight room, but if I go past my red line the next day, like my ability to warm up and my mobility like is trash. But if I push it, and maybe I push it on like one or two sets on like one or two exercises, and then the rest is more of that sport specific training. Even though I did push really hard that day, because it was controlled in like one or two lifts, I could still bounce back the next day, and then my central nervous system is fine, and I'm able to have really, really good mobility. Because I remember there were days in college when I would do the 5x5 back squat and then the 5x5 deadlift like right after, and then do a bunch of just hypertrophy movement
Ronnie Coleman
like
workout.
hypertrophy movements after. It was like the next day I was shot, and then it took me an hour to warm up, where now, because I'm like yourself, where you know you're working, you're doing sessions, you're coaching, and then you're maybe doing online administrative work, and then you have like an hour and a half to train. Sometimes that actually helps me kind of, all right, I push it when I need to push it, and then when you don't, you're able to kind of just have that minimum effective dose, and then it actually makes your training the next day more effective and better, because you're not just like, oh, I'm going to kill it on Monday and then take Tuesday and Wednesday to recover. I could actually improve on multiple areas of my training throughout the week because I'm not dead all the time.
Yeah, I mean, you do have to learn how to balance it. And everyone's going to be different there. You know, everyone's going to respond to training in a different way. So, and that goes for throwing as well. And that's why, like, there's all these like pitch counts, and I think, yeah, like you shouldn't go out there and like abuse your like 13-year-old pitcher, and throw him 150 pitches probably. But like, let's say like if you cap all those guys at like 80 pitches, like 80 pitches for one guy is definitely not the same as 80 pitches for another guy. And you could have a high stress inning based off like if there's runners on base, if you throw more pitches in one inning. There's so much like variance to it. It's really not that simple. But if you can create that understanding of your body the best you can, then you're going to be able to stay in control of what you're doing and know what you need to do in order to perform on that day, but also in order to learn how to pull things back, like pull the reins back when you need to as well.
Yeah, we talk about like the meathead lifting all the time because that's just what we grew up on and what we watched and what we implemented. I don't know if you were part of that crew as well growing up, but what do you think? Do you think that would be the biggest issue you see with kids now of just doing too much or too little, or what do you think would be the biggest mistake a lot of these kids are making?
Yeah, I mean, my first real like introductions to lifting were like with our high school team. I think we definitely got on the wave of like lifting before other teams. Now most schools are doing something there. And obviously like, what we're doing is like even a step further. But like we actually started out doing like CrossFit workouts. So like my junior and senior year, we went to like a CrossFit gym. And then my senior year, we would kind of do those workouts with an instructor, but at our high school. And they definitely weren't like optimal for baseball, but they kind of gave me an introduction into like the gym and like how to like really get after it. And we actually learned like those like CrossFit movements, like the basic CrossFit movements, right? Like your clean and jerk, your snatch, all that stuff. Like we learned those like really, really well actually, which was, I don't know, I think it's great to know how to do those. And also like so many kids now are very, very, they're so undertrained. Like, most guys, if you get them in 8th, 9th, 10th grade, like they're so undertrained, like you could throw like just random stuff at them. And a lot of times you're going to see results. Mm-hmm. I think, and that was like for myself as well. Like I kind of told my story of how I first gained velocity is like my first 2 years of college when I went from, low to mid 80s to like low to mid 90s, I was doing upper and lower splits, and I would, on my lower days, I would squat, I would clean, and I would deadlift on the same day. And I would be like, why is my back fried? And then on my upper day, I would do, I'd do straight bar bench press. I'd do like dumbbell bench press, push up. I do incline bench. I do some rows. Okay.
Gotta get the post
I would do some chin ups a lot of times or pull ups. And I'd do some curls, and I was like, and that was enough for me to create that stimulus. If I kept training like that, I definitely would not be where I am today. And I think that's where like having, a coach who knows what they're talking about, a strength coach who knows what they're talking about is like, when I first came into ATP, I couldn't touch my toes. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, that's like a problem. And like now it's something that's like really, really easy to do. And it's like, I got like strong enough and I was good enough at throwing. Whereas like, all right, just like get bigger and stronger and you'll be fine. Mm-hmm. But then, like, okay, in order to get to those next levels, like, I need to move better. And to, like, avoid, like, bigger injuries, is like, I need to move better. I need to have, like, mobility. I need to, it's just all those things. I need to, like, hammer down some of these different movements. I need to, like, get more rotational work in my training. Like, that was something we never really did in, like, our CrossFit workouts. Like, we were, like, doing some med ball slams, and we weren't, like, throwing med balls, right? We weren't doing, like, any type of like real rotational work.
Yeah, I actually experienced that this week because I've been doing a ton of, to ATP's credit, a ton of unilateral training this year, and just kind of being like, all right, well, I did the back squat, the deadlift up until probably January, and then I'm like, all right, I'm getting ready to go into the season, so I've been focusing heavily on my pistol squats. Sorry, I'm laughing because you're me.
It's good. It was today. It was this guy, but doing a lot better. We're getting there. We're getting there. I was doing in October. I think I was doing a pistol squat, weighted pistol squat. Okay, not just a body weight.
I do body weight.
It's like I had like 25 pounds,
Right.
or something like that. And yeah, it kind of moved around. Didn't feel great. Swelled up after.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, not positive what happened there, but it's been making steady progress. So
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I've been doing a lot of the like the reverse lunge and stuff like that with my and a lot of split squat isos with my lower body training. Big thing too there is because it's like if I step on the runway and I have that 5x5 DOMs of like my lower body's just shot. It's like my throwing and my approach work is just going to be awful. But where does that Olympic lifting fall into play now? Because I know that Heenan's not a huge fan of that. Just for baseball
The only reason
players,
why I stopped doing it
because
that one post he made. I was like a sophomore in high school.
Because of like the risk factor.
Yeah.
So talk about that a little bit, because we as javelin throwers we do Olympic lifts all the time.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, like other people can speak to this more. But yeah, it's a lot of like the catch and the clean. It can put a lot of guys don't know how to do it. So like when I was like learning, it was like, okay, you're not catching it like this. Like you're actually like getting your elbows through and like catching it more on your shoulders and like on your fingers. But also like that can potentially like be forcing some guys into, some positions with their elbows that might not be great for throwers if you don't have like that range of motion and the capacity to do that. That's kind of where like the concern might pop up. But like there's so many other ways to do explosive movements like that. You can do jumps, you can do your med ball throws, like even our director of performance, Brian, like he writes my programs now, and like he put in like a dumbbell snatch in my program to do, and it's like that was great, right? It's like I'm getting myself overhead, like I'm being explosive. It's like there's other ways to get things done.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Brett's a big advocate of that because he doesn't do Olympic lifts, so he'll do a lot of like med balls and just trap bar jumps and stuff like that. But actually, what I was gonna say too before was how I stepped on the runway this week and threw pretty hard, and that was the biggest thing I felt was my back and my spine was just that rotation of being closed off and then hitting a block at that higher speed. I started to feel a little bit of that fatigue in my back because I just haven't been, for some reason, I just been neglecting that rotational component, which I literally was just talking about earlier, how I need to start adding in those rotational med balls and just more spinal movements and pal off, overcoming isos and stuff like that.
I was just talking to one of the coaches because I've been doing a lot more of like the lunge chops, like the cable chops and lifts and med ball throws. And I went to a med ball throw, scoop toss, and I was like, wow, this feels way different. I actually get separation. I'm not just meat-heading it into the wall. But I was joking around saying, like, if I watched, like, if my 16-year-old self watched me do these movements, I would feel like a loser. It's like, because all my 16-year-old self wanted to do is just squat, bench, and deadlift. But my swing and throws always felt so stiff.
Yeah.
Like, especially going into the season. So I just thought that was funny. It was like I just finally started to do it. And I was like, I feel pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, it's big. I mean, I think that sometimes, like, even after my back was sore, I still got to the point where because my CNS wasn't taxed, I was able to, like, warm up well and then still hit my cleans and all my explosive movements today. And my back actually feels better now. I mean, we'll see how it feels tomorrow, but but like it's just, I mean, no, it's just, nah. We still on the climb up, man. We're just getting better every year.
Oh yeah.
But so a big thing with, like, the 90-mile-an-hour formula, with that, you have a lot of those unilateral movements versus the traditional, like, deadlift and back squat. So talk about how that translates to throwing a little bit more than the traditional bilateral powerlifting movements.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll definitely train bilateral as well, obviously. But yeah, I think we do, put a bigger emphasis on like some of those unilateral movements. But if you think about most things you're doing in sport in general, but definitely in baseball, whether that's throwing, hitting, sprinting, you are going to be in a single leg position. Whether that is the position you land in when you're on the mound, right? Throwing, like that looks a lot like a split squat, right? Like you need to be strong in that position, right? You need to know how to move in and out of that. Whether you're moving down the mound, right? You're on one leg for a lot of the time. Same thing with hitting. It's very similar movement. And then if you're sprinting, like you're in a very similar position to that lunge again. So it's definitely a position that in the general like lifting community gets very undertrained or improperly trained. Like if you go to your gym and you look at someone like who might be doing lunges, like their knee is probably like banging off the ground. They're really not engaged through their trail leg. Like they're kind of collapsing and not, using their trunk properly, right? It's like they might be getting up the weight, but it doesn't really look very stable. Like they're kind of ignoring a lot of trunk, glute, pelvic stability. So just being able to control that, and it goes to like, Dan, like you were saying before, like the trail leg hip flexion stuff that Josh talks about a lot. If you can't control that position in a lunge in the gym or any movement, like I'll tell this to my guys all the time, like if you can't control this movement in the gym, and that goes back to like our assessment, right? Like if you're looking through an assessment, just like a movement assessment, and some kid can't rotate, it's like, okay, you're not going to be able to, hit the positions we want you to hit on the mound, right? You need to learn how to move your body in a certain way, and then you'll be able to be a little bit more like technical when we get to the sports side of things, and like you can actually make the adjustments that we want you to make. So I mean that's really why it's so important, is because like it shows up so much in the sport.
Do you know what the thrower stretch is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with the thrower stretch, that is something that Kevin Foster, who we've had on the show, twice now,
maybe 3 times.
Yeah, twice or 3 times. But he was my coach when I was in college, and he revolutionized mobility training online with javelin throwers, and a lot of baseball community ran that
very
program
familiar
as
with
well.
his work.
Yeah. So he came up with I don't know if he invented it or what, but he popularized the throwing stretch, and basically that was his whole thing, was like, this position looks like what you would hit in the block for a javelin throw, which is basically just throwing motion at the end. And so his whole thing was like, if you can't hit this in a stretch, how could you expect to hit it full speed down the runway? And that made so much sense to me because if you ever seen me in college, like I was just the pro of, like I thought I would work hard, but I would work hard at the stuff that I was really good at for the most part. And I would go outside the box and learn a lot of Kevin's stuff and implement new things. But out of the 10 things that he taught me, I might have been pretty good at 2 of them. And then I would just put all my time and energy into those 2 things and stray away from the other 8 that I was bad at. And that's where, for me, I don't know what it is, but I was very good at doing bilateral strength and mobility exercises. So when I was doing my mobility, I would do a lot of reverse Nordic curls. I would do a lot of back bridges. I would do a lot of sissy squat to back bridge. And people are like, oh my God, look at how mobile you are. Mm-hmm. And then I would go and do a pigeon stretch or try to do a thrower stretch, and I couldn't do them. But because I wasn't good at them, I would not practice them. And now being older and wiser, of just having, that higher return on investment for my training, like I've just been grinding like the pigeon stretch and the thrower stretch, and it's unbelievable how much it's translated to a better throwing position, and just even how my hip and my lower back feel when I hit the block is way better. Like the feeling that, like, the pain that I felt, it wasn't even pain, it was more soreness because I wasn't used to like rotating at that velocity. It was more of like that trunk soreness this week. But when I was younger in college, I would have like a really, really low back pain on the left side from like slamming my block leg into the track surface. And that lower back on my left side was just in excruciating pain all the time. And by doing stuff for like my psoas, my hip flexor, the pigeon stretch, the thrower stretch, that pain has just gone away when I hit the block now. And that ability to just hit that position in the stretch is like, why would I not spend more time doing that when obviously that looks like the closest mobility thing to a throw, and I was just shying away from the work required to do that. And it just makes total sense. It's like, if you can't do that when you're static, what makes you think you'll be able to just go out there and do it on the runway? And that's just a huge testament to why training is so important for your sport.
Yeah, and I think a big thing on like the baseball side of things that's like different from javelin is like obviously like the implement and the weight of it. So like with a javelin, like it's almost 2 pounds, right? So like you got to use your body pretty well. Like you can't rely on just your arm. But in baseball, there are some guys, and I know this was like me when I was younger, like are not doing much with their body and like relying really, really heavily on their arm. And that's obviously it's going to limit you on velocity, but also like you're putting a lot more stress into your arm if that's what you're using to generate velocity. But like I look at my mechanics when I was in high school, and it's like, oh, like those were just terrible movements, but it's because I didn't have like a very good understanding of rotation, and I probably had a lot of like mobility restrictions. Like I probably couldn't touch my toes. I probably couldn't extend my spine very well. But it's like I could do this really well. Like I could move my arm and like be whippy. So it's like I got away with it, and it's like if you're really good at moving your arm the right way in a throw, it's like you can be good enough, but it's like you're not going to get to that next level. And I think, that's, it goes into, who you're surrounding yourself with, but it's like if you're the best one on your team, then that's probably not like a good place to be. Like you probably need to get around some better guys. And like I was lucky enough that I played with some really good players growing up. So like a lot of times I was not the best player on my team, but I was better than a lot of guys on other teams. Like, and I did well because I could, like with my velocity, because I could move my arm the right way. So
yeah. I think that's a big thing too. Like for me, when I did start working with Kevin, I was going into my junior years right after I had Tommy John, and I was just the workhorse on my team. And I had one training partner who just, he was pretty good, but not quite as good as me, but wasn't really that dedicated either. And it was like that for about 2 years, and then it was my senior year, the second semester, when Jordan came in as a freshman and was better than me, is when I was looking at like, why am I having the private coach, having the specific training program and doing all this mobility stuff, and why is it not translating? And that was the biggest thing I saw, was like his arm was just back and mine wasn't. And I think in javelin you could actually get away with a lot of stuff, because if you could throw it through the point and you get a decent amount of energy down the runway, there's a decent amount of people that actually have pretty terrible arm slots in javelin that have like either a really high elbow or a pushy arm, but because depending on what conference you're in or who you're competing against, you're not always going up against the best people. So depending on your competition level, some people, if you throw 50, 55 meters, that's pretty decent. That might place you top 5 in the conference. And for some people, that's not enough to push them to the next level. But when I was somebody who was trying to be like a conference champion or an All-American, then I look at someone like Jordan, that pushed me to then start thinking outside the box. And then when I'm just looking at, like, I'm like, all right, well, what do you think about when you throw? And that's exactly what he said. He's like, well, you think about a quarterback, and this is Jordan when he's like 19. So he didn't even know really what he was doing. He was just throwing 65 meters just because he was a really, really good athlete. And he's like, you ever see like a quarterback and like before they throw, they almost snap their arm back and then throw. And I was like, dude, I never thought about it that way before. I was always just thinking about, and that's why in javelin we talk about like those blatant cues don't really help. when it's just like, oh, just keep your arm long, just try to get a longer pull, just keep it back. It's like, that doesn't help,
Right.
you know? It's
Yeah,
just
that's
like,
not how you throw something, really.
Yeah, it's like, I'm trying,
I
bro.
haven't PR'd once. So something's not working.
Yeah, so it's just like, it's just like, yeah, but I was just like, all right, that made so much sense. And then I started learning how to like whip my arm like that, and it took a couple years to actually like refine the feeling out of like a full approach. But it's like that's an example of someone who is, for Jordan, who wasn't really doing anything right at the time, but just had a really good bench press, but a really whippy arm, and from like literally 5 steps was able to just throw 63, 64, 65 meters like that. And then obviously as the years have gone on, you see what he's been able to accomplish now that he added the full approach and like better lower half.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like, some guys are like built for it and they're really, really good. And, we'll have high schoolers, and, we have high schoolers on like both ends of the spectrum. And, some guys will be like, why is this guy so much better than me? Like, maybe they're both like freshmen or sophomores. Like, we've been training like the same amount, like we do the same stuff. Maybe one guy's even, in there more, and it's like, well, like, I hate to break to you, but like he's like just better at throwing something than you, or he's better at baseball than you. And it's like, there's physical stuff, there's genetic stuff, but there's also like, maybe he just like grew up like playing wiffle ball all the time, like playing wall ball. Maybe he like played a lot of different positions in the field. Like, there's so much that goes into it, and like I think it can be tough for some kids to like wrap their head around. But at the end of the day, it's like training is just like a piece of it, right? Your weightlifting, that's like a piece of it. But like the skill side of it is it's so important, and it's tough because like sometimes, like you might be way outworking someone, but you're not getting the results because they're just better. But like also like that's how things work in life. Like, everyone has like their skills that they're good at, and you need to like find out what that is. And like I think the great thing about baseball too is like, in javelin, it's like you're either throwing this distance or you're not. But in baseball, it's not like a velocity competition.
Yeah.
Like, there's it's really cool. Like, there's guys throwing 105 miles per hour, but there's guys throwing 100 miles per hour in the minor leagues, and then there's guys throwing 88 to 90 in the big leagues.
Yeah.
Like, having more velocity helps, but like, you could be Tim Wakefield, who pitched for like 12 or something years in the big leagues, throwing a 65 mile per hour knuckleball.
Yeah.
So it's like, if your goal is to be good at the sport and to like make something out of the sport, go to college, like have a great experience, like you can do that if you get good at other things. Like, yes, there will be genetic limitations, and like things that you did when you were really, really young probably had like a big impact on how you were able to develop into a certain sport. But at the end of the day, like, baseball's great because it's like you can make a living doing other things, right? Like, not everyone's going to be the power hitter. Like, you could be someone who's like the slap hitter and gets on base a lot, right? Or fouls pitches off all the time and like works the pitcher and gets walks. Like, that could be you. But like, in track and field sports, which is also kind of the beauty of track and field sports, is like, no, you either threw it this far, you either ran this time, you either jumped this far, this high, and like,
that's it.
The best is going to be the best usually.
Yeah, and that's where we talk about that too. With me and Jordan grew up playing baseball and football, and then transitioned to javelin later on. Nevin, who threw 67 meters last year, which is further than what I threw, he actually throws a javelin better than anything else, and like that's what we've worked on with him a lot this past year. Because if we do long toss with the plyo balls a lot, and we'll throw the football around, and he's overthrowing or underthrowing, missing to the left or to the right like crazy all the time, and it's because he never grew up throwing. And so for him, like, his first experience throwing was like his junior year of high school throwing a javelin, which is not typical for a lot of kids. And so that's where for him it's just like working on that general throwing ability is super high return on investment, because it's like, like you said, maybe he played the field, maybe, he just was better at just like whipping it from shortstop or whatever, and then ended up pitching later on. And then, it's like that general throwing ability, just like getting your arm back, is so undervalued. And a lot of javelin coaches too, I think, don't really teach the arm slot, because like a lot of guys that end up being good at javelin just were kind of always good, and then they just got better as time went on. But developing those younger guys who didn't come from a throwing background, and I see this with the female athletes that I work with a lot as well, because they typically have less experience throwing than the guys do, because usually guys grow up playing wiffle ball, playing baseball, playing football. A lot of girls end up doing javelin as because they're doing the multi, or they're doing, which is like, the decathlon, where you do all the different events. And then, they might hire me because the javelin just is one of the events, and they never done it before. And so they don't have that throwing ability, and just being able to take that underweight 450-gram ball and just like whipping it and learning how to like get your arm back and stay whippy and loose is super high return on investment for people that have like that, low service time.
Yeah, I mean, throwing variability is always great. I always try and get guys, we, throw the football all the time, and like some kids like can't throw a spiral of the football, and it's like, all right, like figure that out, because like,
yeah,
you got to get good at throwing things.
I
It's
did
like,
struggle with that. And like, I remember sophomore year, junior year of high school, like me and my friend were really trying to learn how to throw the football, just to change it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And I just like couldn't throw a spiral to save my life. I grew up playing baseball all the time, so baseball was no problem. The football was like a straight duck. It
Yeah.
would be different every time.
Well, that's what I
Yeah, it
always
took a while for me too.
Yeah, I always say that too. Is like the javelin is literally like, you want to keep your arm back a little bit similar more to a baseball, but then the actual release is more like a football. So if you could throw, a long toss with a baseball or a plyo ball, and then you can throw a really tight spiral, and then, be able to air out a football, then you go to the javelin. You just need to learn how to throw through the point, and then obviously do the run up. But it's just like, yeah, I mean, it's just so many kids, you just see them, all right, like, you're working so hard on the javelin technique, and then you watch them throw anything else, and it's like, well, that's why you're not good, because you just don't know how to throw.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's where, like, training with, like, med balls could be great, right? It's like,
yeah,
that's variability, right?
Yeah.
Plyo balls, like throwing different
That's-
weighted balls. It's like, that's all, like, variability. And
Yeah, it's great for working on the lower half, too, with the plyo balls and the medicine balls, because then you're not worrying about your velocity, or you're not worrying about how far or how hard you're throwing. You're able to work on the rotation aspect and work on the trail leg, the front leg, stuff like that.
You guys do all different types, like athletic throws. I've seen some pitchers start doing that, like the Jeter throw to warm up, or doing different ways to get into their wind up. Like, do you guys just switch it up how they start their throw?
Yeah, I'll encourage guys to, get athletic and like kind of like freestyle with their throwing. For a lot of guys, that's very much like built in, because a lot of our guys are not like POs, like pitcher only. Like, they will play another position in the field. One thing that I've definitely like noticed this off season is, and Dan, a couple weeks I was telling you this, but like a lot of our lefty throwers, like our lefty pitchers, like really struggle to do a lot of the athletic throws. And if you think about baseball, like
they can only play first base or outfield.
You're only going to be first base or outfield, right? So like you're not doing double play turns. You're not like doing backhands in the hole and throwing it across the first base, right? Like, you're not doing like a turn and throw. So I think being able to expose our lefty throwers, especially, to some of those throw variations,
the worst at the PFPs too.
Yeah, because they're
just not
great athletes, and I might get some hate from the lefty pitchers, but it's like, if you go and tell a lefty pitcher to go do some like athletic throw variations, like, they're probably not going to be great at them.
Sansone, my buddy Mike Sansone, he's playing for the Red Sox organization right now. He was actually on the pod last year, but he was the only lefty second or shortstop playing in Cheshire, all throughout his little league. So he was the best lefty, or actually the best pitcher at PFPs I've still caught, like, all those years, because he was just used to being athletic and throwing, like sliding, throwing sidearm. But I definitely see that from a lot of lefties.
What's a PFP?
Pitcher fielding practice.
So anytime there's like a bunt, like the pitcher has to like
Gotcha.
field it, throw it to first or third. Some of them just can't do it.
Yeah.
That's why
it's been-
those practices were brutal because you was always PFPs, bunt defense, and first and thirds.
Dude, I remember being in third grade and I was pitching and there was like a slow roller to me and I like picked it up and I tried underhanding it to the first baseman and I literally just like rolled it on the ground, bro. It wasn't even close. And I just remember being like, why did I try to do that? Like that was awful. So scary.
Yeah. I mean, one of the other things I like kind of forgot to mention was like when I got to college, one thing we would do is like, whether this was because our coach was like trying to kill time or because he actually like thought it was going to help. I think it's because he thought it was going to help and it's very much like an old school thing. Maybe not like with velocity, but it's like just like go out and do it. Like we would get out like a half hour to an hour early as pitchers and someone would hit fungos, like ground balls, and we would just field ground balls and we would make throws to first base or second base. And it was just like, we were like getting athletic and like I got so much better at fielding ground balls, but like my throwing, another thing that probably like supercharged it those first couple years of, playing in college was doing that. Cause like, I wasn't like a great infield fielder when I was younger. So like eventually I went to the outfield and it's like in the outfield, mostly you're just making like pretty standard throws. Like you're upright and like you have like some momentum behind it a lot of times. You're still throwing, but it's not like you're, whipping the ball like from down here and throwing from all different angles. But,
that's where for me too, I actually noticed a big difference in my throwing as well as when I took a year off from javelin after college and then came back to it as an athlete. And I did a lot of plyo ball training, and that was really to just get the relaxed, whippy arm, throwing the 2K, throwing the 1K, throwing the 450, and that helped a ton. And then I actually have a bunch of videos of me then transitioning to long toss, and you could see how when I was bringing the angle up, I was literally like just like falling over, or like I wasn't able to be stable in that throwing position because then I'm transitioning from throwing into a wall to then throwing to far, and it's just like doing all of those, and then me saying like, all right, I got good at throwing into a wall. Now I'm gonna go throw for distance, and then I'm gonna throw with the crow hop, and then you work on it with the javelin. It's just like those athletic throwing movements of the variability. It's like the same thing in javelin. We just noticed such a big change in your throwing when you're able to just be athletic and feel comfortable and relaxed in every different type of throw.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's like just, I don't know. I think back to like when I was a kid, it was like, yeah, I was playing baseball, but I was playing wall ball at school. I was playing wiffle ball with my brother, like with a wiffle ball, but also like with a tennis ball. Like I was skipping rocks. I was like throwing sticks and like rocks around in the woods. Like all this different type of stuff. Like you don't even realize it, but like that, like you're creating so much variability for yourself as an athlete. If you're letting your kid go out and like do that stuff, like they're probably going to like get good at some stuff. And like for me, it was just like throwing. Like I just enjoyed throwing, so like I was throwing stuff all the time.
Yeah. Your profile picture is you skipping a rock, right?
Yeah. So that was from Montana. Yeah.
Is that like a passion of yours, like being in nature and stuff, or?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like to get outside as much as possible and be in nature. So, yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I mean, I would just like spend like hours and hours outside, and like we had like woods behind my house, which was like I'm very thankful for that. And I would just like go out there and do whatever, kind of exploring and all that. And yeah, I mean, if I was at the beach or a lake, is like pick up a rock and I'm gonna if there's rocks there, I'm gonna throw it. It's like yeah, when I played in Montana a couple years ago, like we were near Glacier National Park, so go on like a lot of hikes or like go down to the river, and it's like just happened to have like a lot of great rocks. So yeah, it was just like, okay, I'm just gonna go out here. It's like there's not much more relaxing to me than just like skipping rocks forever.
Sweet.
Yeah. I think that's like the huge missing piece for a lot of kids and just long-term athletic development when they're younger, because it's either everything's extremely structured. Like everyone's doing travel or AAU or just baseball like year round, and it's just everything's the practice, doing the drill work the same way every single time. Like there's good with discipline and repetition, but then you just look at them in an athletic sense. Like these guys can't move at all. Like they can do this towel drill really well, but they haven't just tell them to play. They forget how to play.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I like that's the way I grew up is like going out and doing whatever. But also I obviously had like some structure with the game. But it's so cool in baseball because there's so many different cultures and everyone trains differently. Mm-hmm. Like if you go watch like clips from like Japanese like youth players practicing, it's like they're doing like reps of like the same drill over and over and over, and like all those kids are like doing the same thing, and that's why like you watch a lot of them throw or swing and they look very, very similar. And then like you could go to like a Dominican and it's like they have like way more autonomy. Like there are some guys like doing a lot of drill stuff, but also like a lot of times it's like those kids are just going out to like the sand lot and like playing baseball.
Yeah,
and
just super relaxed.
Right.
Yeah, you notice that too in Jav actually is like all of the Indian guys all look the same, like the same technique, all the same body type and everything like that. And then you see in US you have a lot of different styles. But this will be the last question here because we're a little bit past an hour now. But how did you get your nickname THROWCHED? Is that you assigned that nickname to yourself or was that given to you? And tell us a story about that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's like very much like a baseball thing is like throwing cheddar or something like that, right? Like throwing cheese is like a term for throwing hard. So
yeah, I knew that.
and even like the ATP, like one of our slogans, like feel better, move better, throw cheddar.
Yeah.
So actually, it started out. I made a TikTok account first, and it was called Straight Cheddar. So like this guy's throwing like straight cheddar, like throwing hard. And then I changed it to Throw Cheddar, I think. And then when I made my Instagram, I just like shortened it to THROWCHED. So that was not a crazy story, but that's that was my goal and what I was trying to do. And like that's what I've stuck with. Obviously, like I've kind of like brought myself back to like a different point because it's like okay, like I got myself throwing really hard, like still trying to like get to a better point in terms of like actual pitching. Yeah. But that's the name, and we're sticking with it.
That's sweet. Then you changed your TikTok eventually, right?
I did, yes.
Sweet.
Yes.
So,
dude, that throw.ched on both.
What's funny is that like how we came up with Jack the Javelin was like when it was my first year coaching officially at Southern. Brett and I were working together at a gym, and my Instagram started picking up. It was at like 300 followers for like a year, and then at the end some videos I was posting of Nevin and Jordan started picking up traction, and more people were starting to follow along, and I had like 700 followers, but it went from 300 to 700 in like 2 weeks. So I was like, yeah, well, if I keep this up, maybe I'll just release a workout program for javelin throwers. That'll be cool. And we were like, well, he's like, what are you going to name it? Jack Javelin? And we were like, yeah, might as well. And like it kind of started off as like a joke, and then as it got closer to like me actually putting it out, I was like, I kind of like the name. And then it was like the workout program, and then eventually I was just like, I'm just gonna change my Instagram to this, and then that was it.
Yeah, I mean, never know where something's gonna come about.
Yeah,
it's like you guys are jacked and you throw a javelin.
Yeah,
just put them together.
Yep.
So what's coming up for you? Any new changes? Anything coming up big in your career? Are you just planning on doing the same thing and staying at the grind, or what?
Yeah,
staying on the grind, not at the grind.
right.
That's my job.
Good catch. No, I mean my goal is definitely like still to play, so I'm currently looking for a place to play for this upcoming season. I kind of see it as like I know like my stuff is as good as like almost any of our pro guys that I see, and like a lot of guys in the major leagues, it's like pretty easy to like see that stuff and find that stuff now. So I know this, like, if I continue, like, working and, like, dial in, like, I definitely have, like, a chance to continue playing at a higher level. You know, who knows where that is, like, if that's MLB, whatever it is. But, you know, if I can continue playing and enjoying it and, you know, make a living playing, but also, you know, continuing to coach, I mean, that's kind of the goal.
Sweet. It's awesome. Good luck.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thanks for
Anytime.
All right. We'll see you.
Awesome.